Merci, Sophie. Merci à vous tous d'être ici aujourd'hui. Thank you all for being here today. But thank you to everyone in all cities around the world who are stepping forward to stand with the extraordinarily brave women of Iran and those standing with them. Thank you to the world for making sure we are all raising our voices and saying enough. Enough of the brutality, enough of the repression, enough of the violation of fundamental human rights. We know it's been enough. Over the past more than 1,000 days, I've gotten to know, unfortunately, so many family members of those who lost loved ones in PS 752. Yet another example, but a particularly terrible and horrific one, of the Iranian regime's disregard for human life, disregard for its own citizens, disregards for basic justice and accountability. And Canada stands with those families, and all Canadians stand with all those who lost loved ones. You will remember in the terrible days and weeks following that shootdown, the emotions pouring out from across the country, because it wasn't just Iranians who were lost in that. It wasn't just Iranian Canadians, like that's a subcategory of Canadians. It was Canadians lost in that shootdown, and all Canadians grieve along with those families, along with those innocents killed from all different countries on that terrible flight. That is what Canada is. And over the past years, even as we have worked with the international community, as we have pushed and we continue to push, and I know there is so much more to do, the brutal regime in Iran has continued to ignore basic rights, to ignore voices that said they need to be accountable, they need to deliver justice, they need to recognize their responsibility and fault, and they denied, and they continued. And the outrage of the world over the past 1,000 days, and the outrage of the world over the past many, many years, at what is happening from this brutal regime that does not represent the beautiful Iranian people, that does not represent the spirit of Iran. You know, Canada is, well, in so many ways luckier than so many different countries. But one of the things that makes us incredibly lucky in this country is we have a large and vibrant and beautiful Iranian-Canadian community. And Canadians from coast to coast to coast who stand with you and grieve with you can't help but look around them in their universities, in their businesses, in their institutions, in public life, in service, in professionals, in community leaders, and say, oh my God, Iranian Canadians are so extraordinary, have so much to offer, so much to deliver to this country. Why doesn't the Iranian government see how extraordinary the Iranian people are? And right now, en ces moments, ces semaines d'action et de rassemblement, à des moments où nous pleurons tous la perte de Mahsa Amini il y a 40 jours, et de trop de jeunes filles et de jeunes femmes et de grand-mères depuis. We cry not only for Mahsa Amini and all she represented as a potential and as a future. We cry for every young woman, mother and grandmother who has stepped forward to stand with Mahsa and been cut down by this regime. We stand as Canadians, we stand as citizens of the world to say enough is enough. This has to stop. And we know that the Iranian regime is desperate for all of us to move on, to forget about this, to shrug and say, oh, again, but Iran is always complicated, and go on to the rest of our lives. But we are here today, like we have been out as Canadians every weekend for the past many days, and we will say today and next week and the week after that and the months after that, that we are not stopping. That we will not be quiet. And the women in Iran, the daughters and the grandmothers and the allies and the people who are stepping forward to stand with them, they are not forgotten. Their voices are being heard, and we will amplify those voices, and we will echo those voices back to them, and we will continue to do everything we can to stand against the Iranian regime. And I know, and you know, there is more to do. We have moved forward with unprecedented sanctions, and we have actually moved to list the Iranian regime and leadership, including the IRGC leadership, under the strongest measures we have in Canada. The same measures we used to go after Bosnian war criminals, the same measures we used to go after those responsible for the Rwandan genocide. What we have done by listing the leadership of Iran and the IRGC means even years from now, when perhaps there will be a change of regime and things will be better in Iran, those people responsible now will never be forgotten, will never be allowed into Canada, will never be allowed to use this country as a safe haven. We know there are people in Canada now who have benefited from the corrupt, from the horrific regime in Iran, and who are hiding amongst this community, this beautiful community, taking advantage of Canada's freedoms, Canada's opportunities, and using the riches they stole from the Iranian people to live a good life in Canada. Well, we say no more. We will be working with this community. We'll be working with partners around the world. We will be working with all the tools at our disposal to make sure that Canada is never again a haven for killers, murderers, and those responsible for the repression of Iranian people. Mais nous avons beaucoup de travail à faire encore. Et votre présence aujourd'hui et votre présence à travers le pays démontre à quel point nous allons continuer dans notre lutte pour un meilleur avenir pour tout le monde à travers la planète, surtout les femmes en Iran qui ont souffert trop. Nous sommes là, solidaires avec vous, et nous allons continuer de l'être. We will stand with you. I march with you. I will hold hands with you. We will continue to stand with this beautiful community and demonstrate to the world that we will not forget Mahsa Amini and the victims of the PS-752. Zan Zendegi Azadi! Merci tout le monde! Zan Zendegi Azadi! Zan Zendegi Azadi! Zan Zendegi Azadi! Zan Zendegi Azadi! Merci beaucoup!